Book 8. Universe.
Universal entry, pause, AB54493694733. Mars Universal Systems Key Code, acting, President Eleron. Headline, mission to Mars, retrieved from Universal Records, obvious.
The good thing about being on Mars again, however much a pale shadow of itself it might be, was knowing my way around again. Luckily we could split our ever-growing team up for the night between Alief's house, Auntie C's cottage, and my own abode, which thankfully all happened to be smaller buildings, with the added benefit that on Mars our homes could automatically grow sideways to accommodate extra guests. Geraldine came with me, while the others divided off with the agreement that we would all meet up again at my house in the morning, with Auntie C showing everyone the way. "I'm sorry you're not seeing our planet at its best," I told Geraldine. "Hardly," she said, eyeing the similarly built yet differently coloured houses. "It's beautiful, despite the chaos and rubble. I can really see why so many humans chose to travel here if they can afford it. Mars seems so tranquil and free and equal somehow compared to Earth. Everyone given the same space and the same basic building, and yet we've all done something different and individual with each one of them." "My mother would have agreed with you," I said, smiling. She was always amazed at the way each house naturally took on its owner's aura after they lived in them for a while. She said our house changed colours a lot after I was born. I rather take it for granted myself. I paused as we passed the fountain, or at least the space where it would have been, and where the hulking great collection of buildings were now precariously perched. "That was where my mum and dad were buried," I told her. "Eleanor and Oberon. I was hoping I'd be able to show it to you. You'd have liked them. They were the best of me. They'd have totally had a plan of action for this invasion, one that actually stood a chance of working." "So do you. They would have been proud of you, Eleron," said Geraldine, putting an affectionate arm on my wing. "From what I've heard and read, they valued honesty and courage above all things, and you've stayed true to both of those things, despite so many difficulties." "I've tried," I sighed. "I'm really not sure, though, if life is easier than in their day or not. In some ways we're more connected between planets than we ever were when they were alive, and the basic principles of emigrating to other planets and falling in love outside your own species has become far more normalised now. Our faster shuttles have made even visiting far easier now, so we have no excuse not to work together, and our travelling has shown me again just how small the universe is. In some ways, though, it's harder. They had a hope of a better future, but we just don't have today. It's as if the realities of coexisting have set in now, and made the realities of getting it seem 10 times harder." "I know what you mean," said Geraldine. "My great-grandparents and grandparents' generation could dream of a future when they might be able to travel the universe and change their lives on a whim. My generation on Earth can do all that now. It seems to have spent most of its time running scared, trying to restrict everything, keep everything confined and contained in some small little box. It's as if they're afraid that by mixing we're diluting our essence as humans, when I think that going out and mingling with other beings and learning from their communities is what makes us more human somehow." "Well said," I concurred. "I think most Mrasianarts would have agreed with you. I still don't see how many humans can stand to live as isolated and limited as you do, not after seeing how much space there is out there." "To tell the truth," said Geraldine, "nor do most of us. It's just something that happened when we weren't looking." "Then why did you vote for it?" "We didn't," she said. "Or at least, not in so many numbers. It's just that the multicultural parties split themselves into 10 and split the votes between them, and there was only one Brexit party who collected all the racist and prejudiced species votes. They had fear and lies and false promises and intimidation on their side too. That always helps with the ones who hadn't made their minds up yet." "I saw Doris's bus," I said. Geraldine laughed. "Yeah, that backfired, didn't it? A bus wasn't the best metaphor for a political concept of cutting us off from each other. Now we need an actual space shuttle to save us. A bus replacement service that keeps you at home is no substitute for a shuttle that will let you see the stars." "Then why did you work for her?" "I had no choice," said Geraldine simply. "If I wanted a job in politics, it was that or nothing. It's not like the old days when all countries have their own multi-parliamentary system. People are so fed up of politics on Earth, we barely have enough politicians for one party as it is. I figure that by simply being there, I could change something, soften some of the blows for them, or sabotage things completely, before finding a way of fighting them myself. I hoped that I would meet other like-minded souls who wanted to help humanity, but sometimes it felt as if the only other person fighting for us was you, exactly the sort of alien we were warned against making contact with. You mean I was the badass they warned you about, I said, looking down at my frail frame. I must be the least threatening being in the universe. Given that I lived on Mars, where 20 parties stood for every election, and 100 people stood to be elected into each party, I didn't quite understand, but I let it pass. Instead I said, you mean I was the badass they warned you about, looking down at my frail frame. I must be the least threatening being in the universe. It doesn't matter how small your body is, Geraldine continued. Your ideas were big enough to scare an entire world. Never forget that, Eleron. We had walked far enough by now to reach my house, which looked remarkably unscathed considering the carnage round the corner. Sorry about the mess, I said, our house automatically expanding as I walked through it with Geraldine on my arm. I wasn't expecting visitors when I left. Geraldine's eyes goggled, and having seen what the Earth houses were like, small and overcrowded, I could see why. My house was large compared to what she'd been used to. It was small for the planet, and every available nook and cranny was stuffed with every conceivable book, album or video recording on almost every subject under the sun. Any sun. Not to mention dozens of instruments from all 10 planets, with Geraldine astonished to see an earthly kettle drum somehow attached to the wall, alongside a treasured Clandesprod teapot and a Mechion computer, nestled in between 10 shelving units, each one made out of the metal of the 10 planets, and containing various items from each one. Even many unavailable nook and crannies were crammed with something, wherever you looked, so that we were forever in danger of knocking into something. Wherever you looked. The only parts of the house that were spotless were the ginormous wardrobes and jewellery boxes of airglows, which she always kept pristine. If we make peace with these aliens, I'll have to squeeze in an 11th unit somewhere for the knickknacks of their world, I said. I'm dying to ask them all about their culture and history, though I suppose I'd better concentrate on making sure we don't blow up our 10 cultures and histories first. You own a lot, Eleron, said Geraldine, as I hastily moved a pile of things off my settee. Yes, I do rather. Sorry. Oh, don't apologise, said Geraldine. A full collection is a sign of a full mind. Most human minds are so empty and closed off. It's rather a relief to find the leader of a free universe has so many contrasting ideas and concepts at hand. I'm in awe of the Earth music part of your collection particularly. You have more than I do, and I'm a fan from the planet. I don't know how on earth you got all this stuff way out here. I'd love to hear it all one day. This, I said. Oh, this is just a part of my collection. You should see upstairs. But yes, certainly. I'd be glad to share with you. I love the fact that it was music that saved us from destruction, almost as much as Emily and Lizzie. The time 150 years ago when the Clandesprod scanned us to see if we were a threat after we pointed our weapons at them. We realised no planet that made music that good could be all bad. Do you have many flaws? Not that kind of flaws. Other flaws. Like the other house we passed. Oh no, I said. That's probably why this house was spared by those aliens. There's just 2 flaws. I could have asked for one under Mraz's special privileges rule for doing the planet a particular service, but, well, I think politicians start getting cut off from the people who vote for them if their houses started getting bigger than those around them, and they end up living differently to them. After all, it's the size of the collection that counts, not the place where it's stored. I'm the opposite of most off-worlders in this, by the way. They work hard to have these grand mansions they can impress people with from the outside, but inside they're so empty. Plus I rather like the fact that even though I used to be quite a high official at Mraz, people see my smaller house nestled amongst theirs and know that I was working hard for them, not for a salary or trinkets. What subjects are all these things from all the other planets about? Asked Geraldine. Anything, I said. Everything. I am, I guess, interested in a lot of stuff that I'm desperate to know about. The more cultures, the better. I'll say, said Geraldine, staring at my shelves. There's everything here, including so many things I'd never even heard of. I'm astonished at the things from Earth alone I didn't expect any off-worlders to know about. Wait, isn't that a pair of bagpipes on the wall? And a scuba diving helmet? And a Spice Girls CD? Weren't they banned by the Interplanetary Anti-Torture Treaty some years back? Oh, and that one's airglows, I coughed, embarrassed. Only Belobrats and Earthlings listen to them. They're a bit too surface for me. Not my taste at all, honest. Well, I had quite a unique upbringing, you see. My parents were from 2 different planets, and I had babysitters from 8, and they all told me so many fascinating stories about their home planets. I would look them up on the Universal when I got home. I was so fascinated by what I heard. It's the 2 I didn't get to know, Camelosia and Mrumphus, that maybe fascinated me the most, though. Their cultures are both so different to ours, and yet they couldn't be more opposite to each other. Sometimes people used to send me things as gifts too, either because they knew me as the son of a Mrasianart who died during Insurgence, or because they liked the recordings we made as the International Peace Orchestra, or because they were our trade partners when I was working for the Mrasianart government. I handed Geraldine some MP90 recordings the orchestra had made. I played the huzeli, Mars' simplest instrument, though I really wasn't very good. If I hadn't been Oberon's son, I would never have got into the band in the first place, I joked. I'm still impressed, Geraldine said. No wonder you somehow see the bigger picture, when you can understand the universe from so many points of view at once, in a way that probably nobody else does. Where I come from, nobody even cares about their planet past what continent they live on. I wonder, I said. The problem is that most of the people who vote for things like Brexit have never actually seen any other cultures or met people from other places, so they don't know what they're missing. All they have ever known is their own culture, so they just assume theirs is the best and have done with it, or take offence at other people bringing their own cultures with them to where other people live, as if that's in any way an offence, rather than the natural order of things. I never have that, though. Because of the way I was brought up, all of these other planets seem real to me in a way that perhaps it doesn't to the vast majority of beings who know they'll never get to visit a world except their own, either because it's too far to travel, or it costs too much, or they're just happy where they are. For me, however, all the universe seemed like a real living entity that's open to absolutely everyone, regardless of species, one we can all learn from. All the more so now I've visited all the planets, at least on this side of the universe. That just makes it all the worse now, though, knowing that I might not be able to save us all, and just how many amazing, wonderful things might be lost. That all those great cultures I love, that all date back zillions of years, quadzillions of years, might be gone forever. It's not gone yet, said Geraldine, and it might not at all. It all depends on tomorrow. Everything depends on tomorrow, I said, fluffing up some pillows for her to sleep on. It might be the last tomorrow we ever have. I look around the room. I can't believe that I'm responsible in a way for maintaining all this, every civilization that lasted to this age. Geraldine smiled kindly at me. Not just you, us too, one of us from every planet we've been to so far. We're not quite as alone as you think you are, Eleron. Good, I said, because honestly, as wonderful as last night was, I do feel quite alone right now. Geraldine leaned over and hugged me. You're shaking, she said, suddenly concerned. Can Mrasianarts even do that? No, not usually, I say, my teeth chattering. I don't think I ever have before. I guess this is more of my human side kicking in. It does tend to do that more when I'm under stress. Humans tend to be more instinctive than Mrasianarts, you see. Geraldine sat down next to me and held my wings. You're really scared, aren't you? I mean, of course you are, but we have a chance, don't we? All this time I've been following you, I never doubted you'd have the answers, even if you did. Before I met you, it always seemed as if deep down you always knew exactly what you were doing, however many times you admitted that you didn't. I've been beginning to wonder, though. Not that I'm doubting you or anything, but between you and me, when you don't have to pretend to be brave, is there really a chance that we might all die tomorrow? The first time I saw Geraldine scared too. Despite what she said, I tried my best to be as presidential as she wanted me to be. Oh, we have a chance. A good one, I think. These aliens don't really know anything about us. Well, they probably win in a straightforward fight. We're going to confuse them so much it will be anything but straightforward. We have a 10-pronged attack, and they only have one. Then what's the problem? Asked Geraldine. I hesitated. I know she wants me to be that kind of a president, but I find myself telling the truth instead. Having a chance isn't the same as being guaranteed success. Everyone is relying on me. I'm not sure I can trust me to get out of this, so why should anyone else? It's not just the plan either. I'm not sure if the humans aren't right. But to hole ourselves up in our planets and to cut us off so only one of us can get hurt at a time isn't the best way for civilizations to survive. By mixing and intermingling, we might have just put ourselves in danger. She frowned. The old Eleron I knew from the speeches would never have said that. He always sounded so sure in his vision. I sighed. Oh, well, you can afford to be hopeful about the future when war hasn't been declared on you, and you still have every chance left for things to go right, burning brightly, unextinguished. I'm not the old Eleron anymore, though. I've done a lot of growing in the weeks since all this happened. I'm not as naive as I was, and now I'm afraid that all my speeches, hopes and dreams come from my innocence. I've seen how the universe works, a bit more now. Geraldine frowned further. But we proved you right, surely. We all came together. We've proved your speeches right, that there is an intergalactic hand to be stretched across the universe that wouldn't leave anyone behind. I put my head in my wings. Yes, people have rallied behind the idea in my speeches better than I ever expected them to. But what if they were all just speeches, though? What if none of it was true, or feasible? What if it was all what I wanted to be true? What if I didn't really believe it could happen? Geraldine dismissed this with a wave of her hand. Your speeches were always the real you. That's why they resonated with me so much. At a time when every other politician was just trying to be elected, you were telling the truth. She looked panicked. They were real, weren't they? The things you said? Because if you fight tomorrow and try your hardest and nobly lose, that's one thing. But if everyone who voted for you was here under false pretences because you said them without meaning them, never meaning to be voted in, that's different. Oh no, I meant everything I ever said at the time, I said. It's just that who I was then isn't necessarily who I am now. I've grown, even though it feels like downsizing in so many ways. She blinked. She looked at me perplexed, puzzled. Then who are you, Eleron? I don't know yet, I sighed. Were you ever really sure of something that turned out to be wrong? I mean really, bet your life on it, sure. Only to find out that every decision you made must have been a lie because your foundations were wrong, and that if you were that wrong about something you were so sure of, well, you start wondering what else you were so sure of that turns out to be wrong. It rather shakes your idea of who you are to your core. What are you saying? I paused to think. What am I trying to say? Suddenly the words come out in the most clandesprodic spiel rather than the usual clip Mrasianart sentences. I want to be your leader, as much as I ever did, but I'm not sure if I can be after everything that's happened. Now that I know that I'm just a naive clown who was a stooge for the real leaders rather than a proper president. Now that I'm the husband who discovered that his wife didn't even vote for him. I pause while Geraldine takes all this in, and I debate how much to tell her before deciding to go all the way. After all, I feel I have to tell someone or I'll physically burst. Geraldine, I finally said, did you ever feel that everything you ever thought was true was really a lie, that everything you ever navigated life by was suddenly taken away from you in an instant? She shook her head. A little bit when Doris got into power, maybe, but no. I have, I said. In fact, there's a few things I ought to own up to. I didn't agree to hand over my presidency, and there isn't any war cabinet. We didn't have time to make one. Instead, it was taken from me. There was a sort of coup against me on Decreeta after the aliens were spotted in orbit around Earth. Apparently I wasn't really the winner of that last election at all, but a patsy to take all the flack so Bob and Horace could run the show themselves. They organised it so that I'd won. I genuinely believed I'd won, but apparently it was all a con. I finished unconvincingly. So you see, I'm not the great leader you think I am. And if I was wrong about being president, what else might I have got wrong? Am I just leading everyone to their deaths tomorrow? No, Eleron, said Geraldine, quietly but assertively. No, I'm not having that. You had two dreams that you really sincerely believed in. Just because those around you didn't believe in them too doesn't make them wrong. You didn't win under false pretences. If what you're telling me is true, then you lost despite being right. Because I know you're right. All of us here behind you know you're right. You have to be right. If we'd been a more unified presence in the first place, we could have faced this intergalactic threat down a long time ago. All of us here behind you know you're right. You have to be right. If we'd been a more unified presence in the first place, we could have faced this intergalactic threat down a long time ago. If we stand divided on this new threat, we'll all fall. The only way to face it is through cooperation. Better together, remember? I know you've had a shock that's knocked your confidence, Eleron, but you're the leader for us. I actually believe it more now, despite finding out that you're only human. Only on my mother's side, I sniffle. Exactly, Geraldine paused to think. You Mrasianarts believe in fate, don't you? In a guiding plan over and above anything else. Well, here's something for you to think about, Eleron. We sent those satellites out into space centuries ago, hundreds of years before I was born. And yet, after hurtling through the cosmos for all that time, they end up being discovered by these aliens who travel here the very same week you become president. I don't think that's a coincidence. And have you noticed that the beings who keep shaping our universe, who were there at the time of greatest trouble, they aren't the Belobrats full of confidence, or the Mechions working with cold logic. They're the humans, the Mrasianarts, the Clandesprods, the warriors of the universe, not the warriors. The people who question whether they're doing the right thing because they care so much, not the species who are just adamant about doing things their own way. We only need to grab the hard for a full house. Now, not only do I think you're the right leader for us, I think you're the only leader for us. Anyone else in your shoes would just have abandoned the Earth to the aliens and let everyone be invaded, or stayed on Decreeta out of cowardice, or both. I think this invasion was meant to happen someday, but it's happened at the very point where the universe has sent it someone who can stop them. Then why do I feel so inadequate if I'm fated to succeed, I moan. You said it already. Because you're only human, said Geraldine soupily. On your mother's side, anyway. And on the other, you're only Mrasianart. Just as all of us are only one species or another. You have exactly the right combination of skills the universe needs right now to see us through, the biggest one being that you do genuinely care for everybody. It's a rare skill in the general population, and nowhere more so than in politicians. After all, can you imagine what would have happened if this had happened when the Belobrats were in power? They would have sold our planets for scrap as soon as they set eyes on those aliens. And it wasn't just your vision you're questioning, it was shared by ever so many of us who still believe. Don't worry, Eleron, you're not as alone as you think you are, and we'll show you tomorrow. Although I would keep what happened to yourself, so that it doesn't worry anyone else. Although I fear tomorrow is here already, she finished yawning. Thank you, I said, full of gratitude. You need to sleep now, though. I should let you rest. Geraldine tried to argue with me, but I stopped her. No, we need everyone to be at their best tomorrow, and that very much includes you. And I've said all I need to say. But thank you, Geraldine. I really thought you'd walk out on me if you knew the truth. But I had to tell you, rather than lead you out under false pretences. I feel so much better now. You won't tell the others about what really happened? Of course not, said Geraldine sleepily. Oh, I shouldn't think they care. But you'll see the way I do, you know. Good, I said. I'm just going for a walk to say goodbye to my planet, in case it's the last time I see it. I'll try not to disturb you when I get back. I won't be long. We hugged tightly, and then I found my way to the door.
Universal entry, pause, AB544-936-9747. Browse Universal Systems Key Code, acting, President Eleron. Headline, Mission to Mars 4, retrieved from the Universal Records of Years.
Not surprisingly, I couldn't sleep that night, my brain whirring from our conversation, as well as everything tomorrow had to bring. I was paralysed by thoughts of responsibility, guilt, and fear. I didn't quite know where I was going, but I knew that I needed to be around people, and after spending so much time with other species, I desperately needed to commune with my own. As I went, I passed streets of rubble, aghast at the sheer strength of these aliens to have caused so much damage without even seeming to try. What havoc would they wreak on the rest of the universe if we didn't stop them? I paused a second time by the Insurgence fountain, or at least the space where it had been, and where it was now flattened by the remnants of some Mrasian millionaire's cottage. Oh, Mum and Dad, I said, how I wish you were here to guide me right now. There must have been just enough of the Mrasianart crystals used to build the statues left underneath the building, that just then our Mrasianart moon's rays hit it, and it sparkled, lighting up the night sky in such a way that I felt they were with me somehow. What do I do? I asked them in silent prayer. Will my scheme work, or am I taking all these innocent people to their deaths? I strained to see their ghostly figures coming towards me, but hard as I tried, the universe was silent, and the ghosts didn't feel as if they belonged to this spot anymore. So sighing, I walked on. I found the rubble that had been Airglow's house, not the one she'd shared with me, but her family home. Her background had been much posher than mine, and their home had been much bigger, with several additional stories. One of the constant arguments Airglow had had with me was that she had downsized to live with me, and that she deserved a bigger house, so why didn't I move to hers? It was, I reflected now, a good job that I hadn't, or my collection would now be under several miles of rubble. Thankfully no one else had lived here since her mother's death, and her father had never returned once he had moved back to Helisphere when her mother had been pregnant. Bits of rubbish were scattered all around the street. Randomly I picked one up and found that it was an extract from a childhood scrapbook diary.
Please help me,
it said.
I'm all alone. Nobody here looks at me. Nobody cares. I am the loneliest creature in the universe.
On the facing page, Airglow poured out her frustration over having an absent father and a mother she couldn't understand.
They expect me to be someone I don't know how to be. These one-dimensional beings of one species only when I see and hear and feel so much more than they ever could. Why do they restrict me so?
I moved on a couple of pages.
Everyone here hates me. They're right too. I hate me. I hate feeling like this is the only being like me who lives here. So loud, so big, so over the top. Everyone says being different makes me feel special, but the truth is, I just feel ordinary. It's everyone else who seems special to me, whilst I'm dull and boring.
I turned the page.
I wish I was brave, like those other Belobrats I see on the Universal. The trouble is I get so far inside my own head that I don't know what I'm saying, and then I get embarrassed. I hear all those stories of people being brave in desperate situations and needing cool heads. And honestly, I don't know what I'd do if that was me. I think I'd just panic.
I skip a few pages on and read further.
If only there was somebody on this planet as lost as me, just one, then I wouldn't feel so alone. They'd be perfect, and we would never fall out. We would be together forever, and I'd never let them go. But then why would anyone want to be with me if they could be with someone else?
Poor Airglow. I'd always known of her suffering and her loneliness before we'd properly met, but it had always been information told to me as a past story, as something she had survived and overcome. To see it here, written out in real time, I suddenly realised how desperate she had been for company, and how once she had met me she had grabbed on tight, as if I were a life raft, and then never let go. I suddenly saw myself through her eyes, as the unlikely rescuer, divinely composed for unique parenting just for her, to be as equally alien to this homeworld as she was yet different. And yet I could also see all the problems this caused further down the line, when she expected me to save her. It became clear I couldn't even save myself. I skipped ahead a few pages more.
I met the most amazing hybrid creature in my head today. He's not entirely like me, being a Mrasianbrat of the human, rather than a Belobrat, but I like him more than just about any other creature in the universe. I wonder if he's the one for me.
I traced the pages through to our first physical meeting.
He was so handsome and so kind and so patient, always seeing the good in me I can't see in myself. That scares me a little.
Our date.
He makes me feel like the most important, most beautiful being in the universe, even though I am fat and ugly, with too many heads.
Engagement.
He asked me to marry him in Belobrat, without a translator. His accent was so terrible I barely understood him, but the thought was there, sweet.
Our wedding.
The most special night of my life. When I said that to Eleron, he just said, the most special night of your life so far, and took me to look at the stars. Could it be at last? Someone really loves me? For me? Or am I just fooling myself?
And onwards into darker times.
Only now do I realise that the one I picked to be my perfect person isn't perfect, and now that I've seen him for what he is, flawed and human, even though he's a Humrasianart, I can never go back again, ever. I want someone I can party the night with, not someone who goes to bed early and then spends most of the night pacing up and down. I'm going to secretly change my vote for Bob and not tell him. After all, what does Eleron know about running a universe? We were the laughing stock of the universe if we won.
Until finally, just before we left for Decreeta, the last entry reads much like the first.
I'm so lonely. There's no one out there like me. I'm the loneliest creature in the universe. Again. Please let someone else come along and rescue me.
I watched the timeline of our relationship decline from hope and love, through tear stains and torn pages and dents where the diary had been thrown at my head, to the bitter outpourings of its final pages. Where had it gone wrong? I still couldn't see. I had hoped for a window into my beloved's soul, but it turned out she was just as confused about what had gone on as I was, and I didn't know if that made me feel better or worse. All I knew was that the airglow at the start of the diary was not the same person she'd been at the end. Nor, for that matter, was I. Suddenly I realised we had both been alone and lonely after all, despite being together. Finally, I put the diary back where I had found it and walked on, memories of the two of us surfing through my head with every passing wave of grief. I wonder where Airglow was right now, and whether she still cared for me. At the corner I stopped, realising where I was. It was the teller shop where I had been just a week or so earlier, but which now felt like an eternity ago. Though it was late and long past business hours, I thought I saw a light on, so nervously went to knock on the door. Before I had a chance, however, the door opened, and I saw the familiar face of my favourite teller.
"I've been expecting you,"
she said simply, opening the door.
"though I almost didn't recognise you. You're definitely not the same person who left here the last time, as I knew you wouldn't be, and your aura is a very different colour. Come, we have much to discuss."
"I'm here for advice," I said, "about stopping this alien invasion. I'm sure you've heard."
"No, you're not,"
said the teller unblinkingly. "Pardon?" I said.
"That's not the advice you need, really. You have your plan, and it's a good one for what it's worth. That's not to say it's guaranteed to work, but it has as much chance as anything does on our side of the galaxy right now. What advice is it you really need?"
"You tell me," I said cautiously.
"Well, I suppose it's the same advice for everything you're trying to ask about, really. You try and take responsibility for every being in the universe, and you aren't responsible for anyone's actions but your own, Eleron. In anything. Battle, love, politics, games of foosball, it's all the same. The only person's response you are responsible for is your own. As long as you've been true to yourself and been honest about what you can offer, then, well, everybody's response to that is up to them, not you. If you inspire them, they decide to follow you and put themselves in harm's way because they believe in what you believe in too. And that's up to them too, in love or politics. You spend so much of your life caring about other people. Maybe it's time to put yourself first."
"Oh, good," I say, surprised. "But that's hard to do when repelling an invasion. Is my response the right one? Am I the right person to be doing this at all? A friend of mine said that I was fated to be here as this person leading the response against these aliens. But I can't help thinking that the universe got something wrong when they chose me." The teller smiled, more kindly.
"The universe is never wrong, and the advice still stands. I can't tell you that you're absolutely the right being for the job exactly, because I don't think any one being is. But perhaps I can show you something that will put your mind at rest."
She takes me to a second floor and to an object hidden under a tablecloth.
"This is the mirror of true sight. I usually keep locked away because it is so dangerous,"
She continued.
"and rare."
I shudder. "I don't like mirrors," I said. "I was always looking in airglows and never liked what I saw. I was always so weak and small. Maybe if I'd had 3 heads I would have felt differently, but this one always seemed so ordinary." The teller grinned.
"Oh, you'll like this one. It's special."
She took off the cover, revealing an ornate semicircle covered in crystals, its back still towards me. "Where did you order that?" I laughed. "I don't remember seeing that in my latest Universal Mail Order catalogue."
"You know as well as I do, Eleron, the special qualities of Ziggurat's 3 crystals, infused as they are with 3 separate rays of sunlight. Candispros only ever used these rays for warmth or fuel, but years ago a Mrasianart philosopher paid for a Mechion alien to put this mirror together for him from a combination of their crystals out of interest to see what it would do. Dotted with a mixture of crystals from all the other 9 planets for good measure. He left it to me in his will as payment for all the readings I used to give to him."
I asked nervously. "Is it like those Earth fairground mirrors? Will it make me taller?" The teller looked puzzled.
"I don't know what those are. What I do know is that these crystals combine to strip away the differences between our species and show the real you at your core. Not the version of you that you hide behind from day to day, or the one that you talk down because of guilt or shame or fear, or the part of you that acts the way you do because everyone around you expects you to. But the real you, deep inside. All of the mirrors distort when you look at them, whether it be the slight bend of the ones on Earth to make Earthlings look better, or the full distortion of the Belobrats on Helisphere to make Belobrats look amazing. But this one is the only mirror in the universe that shows the reflection exactly the way it really is. Most beings can't handle its glare. They're not prepared for what they find in it. And the sight of their true selves would be too much for them to handle. So far, out of the thousands of visitors I've had, I've intuitively sensed the need that just 9 creatures would benefit by looking at it. A lot of people have heard about this mirror. I've had some people travel from around the universe asking to look into it. And often I have to turn them away because I know they are not ready. Now though, I want you to be the 10th. Because I sense you are ready, and that looking inside it would benefit you. There's just one thing about it, though. Be warned, as once you look inside, you might never see the world the same way again. The universe's light might never reflect off you in the same way, and your vision will be clearer, and not distorted by millennia of evolutionary baggage, so that you will never be able to pretend to be someone you're not.
How do you mean? I asked.
You see who you really are, regardless of what your brain might think you are, or what you look like on the outside. And as a side effect of seeing that, you find that you can't act against what you see. When you look into the mirror, you might see how insignificant you are, and nothing speck of dust against an infinite cosmos, for instance. That's what happened to the Belobrat who came to me to use it, and he went mad. Or perhaps you discover that you're really a fierce warrior. That's what the Dr. Hardit saw, but she so scared herself with what she was capable of that she was stuck hiding in my wardrobe for a week. Or maybe you're a small friendly soul, like the gooseberry giant, who was most surprised to see his true self. Or a crybaby like the Migrant who had spent his life bottling up his emotions. Or a secret party animal like the Mechion who devoted the rest of his life to being around other people. Or a practical joker like the Camelosian, who just wanted to let her hair down. Of a brilliant, charismatic and driven leader that the Haberdats saw, lurking beneath his super-relaxed character. Or you might end up like the Mrasianbrat, who tried it, and found to his horror he was just an ordinary soul, with nothing special about him at all, for all his deep thoughts and mystic views, and his belief that he was superior to everyone around him. You might remember him, Eleron. He became President on the field. Basically anything that scares creatures and causes them to act the way they do is filtered out by the mirror, so that all you're left with is your truest self.
And the humans, I asked, what did they see?
No human has yet looked into this mirror,
said Patella.
What they might see is a mystery, as they are more complex than most of the other beings. As a Humrasianart, you would be the closest we've ever had to it. But are you brave enough to look into it, Eleron? To see yourself as you really are? It is your choice, after all.
I swallowed unconsciously, desperate to look inside, but more than a little scared. What happened to the beings that looked into the mirror? I asked.
4 of them went mad. 1 of them became a tyrant, as you know. 3 of them now lead much happier, freer lives. And 1 of them is your vice president.
What? I asked. Horace came here.
Yes.
She smiled.
He told me he was fed up being the only ambitious Haberdats in his home world, and he wanted to achieve more of his life than everyone else. But he was afraid that his time growing up surrounded by so many laid-back people meant he might be unsuitable for international office. This was many years ago, and I don't quite know what he saw, and it seemed to do him no end of good. He founded Haberdats' first university, revitalised their political system, and brought prosperity to their planet like they'd never seen. He's quite the hero at home.
I never knew any of this, I said. I thought he just took the job on Haberdats because no one else would, and he saw it as easy work. I didn't know it was a calling for him. Why then did he become so corrupt when he made it on Decreeta?
The mirror only shows you what you are at the time you look into it. With time, Horace seems to have grown envious of his fellow Haberdats, wanting an easier life like them. Also, it was because he was afraid. He didn't have the belief that he alone could change a system that had run so long, so he took advantage of it instead. He tried to take advantage of you too, but your belief and idealism is much stronger than his, though far from more deeply hidden, behind a gentler, softer manner. You were everything he wasn't, ambitious for the sake of the people you represent, rather than what might help yourself. Because of this, he always knew deep down that he was going to lose against you, and resented you for it.
My goodness, I said, trying to take it all in. Then why didn't I know about this mirror? I mean, I'm the one who lived here on this planet all the time.
Because you weren't ready,
said Vitella simply.
If you'd have seen it before your eyes were opened up to the truth of the universe yourself, you might have been too shocked to do what it is the universe wanted you to do. You might have been hiding in my wardrobe with a cloak to hide it. And well, I can't keep giving closet space to random species.
But I'm ready now.
Yes, I think so. After all, you've been preparing yourself to fight the scariest creatures our universe has ever seen, and you haven't run away, at least not yet. To fight something that strong, you need to know who you are deep down, and what you are capable of.
What do you think I would see if I looked in the mirror?
I don't know,
said Vitella.
Which is rather why I want to find out. Are you brave enough to look Eleron? You were free to walk away.
I hesitated. Would it stop me in my quest? There are so many people relying on me, I can't let them down.
If you are truly meant to be the one to face these creatures, then it won't depend on you. Other than that, I do not know.
Will it help me in my quest, then, I asked? Will it help me save people?
Undoubtedly,
Vitella said.
This quest is what you're fated to be on. And how can anyone help anyone else if they don't know yet who they truly are?
I drew up every last bit of inner courage I had left. And I am ready to look.
One last thing before I let you walk towards it,
said Vitella, and she handed me a gadget that I had once owned a version of, but had forgotten all about. It was a children's game, known as a karma machine. It quickly scanned your thought patterns on the universal and determined whether you had behaved wisely, foolishly, or neutrally. The version I'd had in childhood had come with a fixture that dumped a pool of nitrogen over the head of your victim if they misbehaved against you, and it was triggered by a guilty conscience. Many a fun hour had been spent trying to trick my friends into setting it off. This version, though, was a more modern one that seemed to come with an inbuilt laser. As a planetary souvenir, I asked. She nodded. Will it hurt anyone?
Not badly,
she said.
As you probably remember, you can't be too vindictive with this gadget, or it will turn and hurt you instead when you use it.
I absent-mindedly rubbed my tail, remembering an instant when it had done just that, and I had gone running into Eleanor, who had shown a great deal of sympathy, till Oberon, who knew how these machines worked, had told me off. Then thank you, I said. See you soon, I hope. With that I walked towards where the mirror was kept under covers, and braced myself as Vitella took them off, closing my eyes until I was ready to look. Finally, I opened my eyes and stared out as neutrally as I could, and was met by my reflection, my usual reflection. No bigger, no wiser, no stronger, just me. I don't understand, I called back to Vitella. Is this the right mirror?
Well, if it isn't,
said Vitella,
then my real self must look a most dreadful sight, as I only have one at the mirror, and that's upstairs on my dressing table. I used it this morning. One moment.
And Vitella went behind the mirror to check something.
No,
she said, trying hard not to catch sight of her own reflection.
Everything is working normally. This is who you really are.
I stared into my eyes, which are agonisingly the same height. If I'd only grown a few inches, that would have been something. I didn't see a warrior, or an infinitesimal speck, or someone with great ambition, or a party animal, or any of the things Vitella had been telling me. It was like looking in an earth mirror, but without even the slight tint and kindly glare of one that was destined to make you seem more beautiful than you really were. Instead, I was just me. What does it mean, I asked.
That you are enough for what you need to do, Eleron,
she said.
You are nothing more and nothing less than the person best suited to saving us all right now.
Then why don't I feel it, I asked.
Deep inside you do,
she said.
Away from other people's doubts about you and the things that happened on your quest to make you question yourself. You've always known this vision of yours of how the universe should be is true. After all, your parents both had it too. You've always known this was your destiny. You've always been heading towards it. You haven't run away from it. You haven't got full of yourself over it. And you haven't distracted yourself from it. You've been preparing yourself your whole life for this moment. And you've become the best version of yourself you can be in the past. Now go and make the most of it in the present. You are enough, Eleron.
Thank you, I said, pulling my eyes from a mirror and clutching my karma machine. I think that was what I most needed to hear right now, in all the universe. If the universe says it, then it must be true. I know now how to be a leader, simply to be myself.
Lost? What do you mean we're lost?
Yelled Queen Calixta at her meanest.
I'm sorry, it's a big universe. It's easy to get confused.
Jittered Wash.
I would never deliberately do anything to hurt you, Oakley. I'm just not as naturally gifted at my job as you are at yours. That is true,
agreed the Queen, and Wash breathed a sigh of relief.
This half of the universe is a messy, unregimented, cluttered place. It needs a good clear out, and I intend to be the one to do the clearing. Let's see if this strange universal device I took from the aliens is any good at showing us where to go.
She pressed a few buttons, most of which were wrong, and handed the machine over to Wash.
See what you can make of this contraption. Your ruler commands it,
she said. To his relief, Wash found the universal rather easy to use. It had, after all, been designed to work with as many alien tongues and ways of thinking as possible. He managed to steer the shuttle back on course to Decreeta. As he was using the device, though, a message pinged through.
President Eleron's universal feed is now resuming.
Wash rushed back and showed it to the Queen, who smiled and patted him on the head.
Excellent,
she said.
This will show us what these aliens are planning. Let's get back to the rest of the hive at speed.
She watched through Eleron's eyes as he won the election.
So many creatures cheering for him. Interesting,
mused Queen Calixta.
This alien president must be huge and a towering figure indeed. Will give them greater satisfaction taking apart such an opponent.
In a haste she hadn't noticed that Eleron's perspective would have barely reached up to her ankles. Such was their difference in size.
Universal entry delayed. AB 5449360. Mars Universal Systems Key Code. Citizen Eleron. Mission to Mars 5. Headline retrieved from the Universal Records of his.
You seem in a happier mood, Eleron, Geraldine said sleepily. I thought after our last conversation that you'd have been pacing up and down all night, but you seem really relaxed. I am, I replied contentedly. I slept like a baby habitat last night. I know what I have to do now. Well, that's good, said Geraldine. Very good. Would that thing you have to do include making breakfast at all? Just then I felt a once familiar feeling at my side. My universal recording device had turned back on. Moving to Geraldine, I pointed at the device at my side and made the Mrasian sign for hush, a cross on the lips. Geraldine looked puzzled at first, but then understood, nodding and writing on a bit of paper, actually a priceless pristine copy of Insurgence left to me by my mother, but let's not quibble about that now. That she would go to the others and let them know they couldn't talk openly in front of me, just in case. A nervous wait while I stared at an unidentifiable patch on my wall later. A whole chorus of voices called outside. It's us, Eleron!
Medicine.
The universe is still showing things as they were on Decreeta, back before you left. I opened the door to be met by 9 nervous but triumphant faces. Auntie Sue was the first to speak. Eleron, everything is going to be fine. Everything is going to be fine. Don't worry at all. No, don't worry your pretty little head. Your pretty little hybrid head about a thing. If those aliens are tuning into your universal feed, then all they're going to see is footage of you being presidential. There's nothing much to see. Just footage of you on Decreeta, calling a presidential meeting about the alien shuttle seen off of Earth's orbit. And... oh. Everyone stopped at once. Some gasped. I knew it would have to be something fairly major to cut a Clandesprod off in full flow like that. What is it? I asked feebly. It's Horace telling you that you're not president anymore. That you never were. Oh, I said, feeling so incredibly disappointed. I got so close to my friends, old and new, without them finding out what happened to me. I was wondering when to tell you that. I looked up shamefaced to see 9 disappointed faces looking back at me and Geraldine, confused about a universal device of her own. These are the moments just before I left for Earth, when the Universal stopped broadcasting. That means the aliens will be able to see everything we've been up to, though thankfully they're still seeing what I did a week ago.
I know you tried to tell me, but, well, I would never have believed it, said Auntie C. I'm amazed, stunned, stupefied, flabbergasted, bewitched, bothered, bewildered, flopdoozled, truly lost for words. In all my days I've never seen anything like it, at all, never. Treated by Eleron like that, why if they were here now I'd knock all their heads off, 3 times over for that dratted Belobrat. Impeachment's too good for him, I say. That's dangling off his shuttle by his tail. That Habitat too. I never knew someone so laid back could be so cunning. Why have I had my way?
Does this mean you aren't officially president anymore, Eleron?
Word Quincy. I'm not, I said miserably. I guess if the Universal has kicked in, then it means that Horace is officially your president now. If he's still alive. I suppose you'll all stay behind on Mars now, rather than travel with someone who's only lasted in this job for a week. I failed you all. I totally understand if none of you want to come with me on this mission, now that you all know what really happened. But I still feel that I have to try to save everyone, especially Airglow. Suddenly, before everyone could speak, at once everyone winced in unison. Ooh, said Mrasianbrat. What is it? Spluttered Geraldine, longing to see what the others could.
Horace has just refused to fly to Earth and says Eleron has to go on his own, but only if he agrees to stand down.
Explains Aliath.
That's not how democracy works.
Cowards, roared Auntie C. What the absolute nerve of it! What would he have done if it was Habitat lined up for destruction and that had just signed out of the IPO treaty then, Tell me, He'd have sent his minions in to get exterminated, that's what. Why, thank goodness you were there, Eleron. Somebody sensible, seeing the bigger picture.
Well, like that.
Added Horatio, wincing at the universal theme.
You wait till I see my elected leader. I have a few words to say to him. You did the right thing, Eleron. You were the only brave person in that whole room.
I concur that the methodology used by this unelected Vice President is at odds with the contingency plan outlined by our forebears at the International Peace Conference of 2097, subsection 4, paragraph C, and therefore it tolerates your good self in perpetuity, said Cornelius.
In contrast, Eleron, your recourse was wholly logical,
concurred Quincy.
I'm shocked by Horace,
said Horatio.
to think I ever voted for him. Not half as much as I am with Bob.
Muttered Balthazar.
Abandoning the Earth like that, being so rude, even by Belobrat standards.
My brave boy,
sobbed Auntie C, knitting me a hat with those very words on them.
You did so well to stand up to them. That wicked Belobrat and his timid Habitat puppet. You wait till I get my hooves on them. Oh, I'll show them what for I will. Yes, right for. Whoa, left and a right and a walla. Oh, yes.
What? I asked, surprised. You mean you don't hate me? You're on my side.
Absolutely. We're all behind you, Eleron. I'm shocked at them.
Joined in Quincy.
Peace representatives by foot, all ready to sell off the planet to save their own skin.
You see, yelled Geraldine, slapping me on the back. I told you that you were the only being brave enough to save the Earth, at least in that room.
Completely,
said Aliath.
They were using you, Eleron, for their own means, pure and simple, but you were brave enough to do the right thing anyway. Of course, what happens on one planet affects all of us, especially something as big as this. You were right to try to save innocent people. I mean, that was your job, whether they were technically part of the Intergalactic Union or not. You're the only brave one there,
Jennifer squeaked.
Logically, I agree,
said Quincy.
True, so true,
added Mrasianbrat. I couldn't quite take it all in. I'd been so dreading this moment of being revealed for what I truly was. But it seemed to be all right after all. Then you'll still agree to help me, even though I'm not president anymore. Before you answer that, asked Geraldine, can I ask here which of you voted for Eleron at the presidential elections? All our hands and wings and hooves went up, some multiplied depending how many limbs my friends had. Geraldine I knew about. Auntie C and Aliath I kind of assumed. A few of the others had said so early on when I thought they might just have been trying to be nice. But I was shocked to see the others had voted for me, over and above their own planetary candidates. They could clearly see my confusion, so Quincy took it upon himself to explain.
The way I see it, Eleron, is that we still had our planetary ambassadors to look out for us and make sure that other worlds didn't get an unfair advantage over us. Intergalactic President, though, well, that's a different idea altogether. We need someone to rise above those ideals and work for everyone. Not themselves, not like the olden days, everyone. You are the only sensible choice.
"What did I tell you?" said Geraldine, beaming. Instantly I felt 1,000,000 times better. Maybe I was enough after all. "But what are we waiting for?" I said. "Come on, crew, we have a universe to save. Or our half of it, at least."
Yahoo!
Said Mrasianbrat as we trooped out of my house and back to the shuttle pad, the karma machine safe in my wings. It looked as if the last farewell message from a planet was to be my own. "Well then," I said, as we prepared to take off, "as we say on Mars, may there always be just enough light to help you in the dusk, and just enough darkness in your life to help you understand that there is more to life than living in brightness." Suddenly something occurred to me. "One moment," I said, and rushed back into my house. Somewhere, hanging on my wall, was a much treasured family heirloom I thought might come in useful for my plan. The Earth megaphone that had been used during Insurgence. As I took it from the wall, I sensed a pair of familiar-looking ghosts holding hands and smiling proudly at me. Of course they would be here for me at my time of need, and where they had lived, not where their statues were scattered. It was as if the mirror had given me understanding and insight suddenly. But as I turned to look at them fully, they were gone. I smiled back gratefully. The barriers of life and time temporarily dissolved, until reluctantly I chased after my friends.
DOC 8575/575/29593/ADD-PD. Mars Universal Systems Key Code Documentation. Headline: The Eleron Peace Declaration Scrolls. Retrieved from the Universal Records of Iris.
Somehow, as our shuttle took off into space once more, as everyone else grew more serious and a little quieter, even Auntie C to my amazement, my heart felt a quadzillion times lighter. This was going to work. The universe had shown me that I was capable. We'd somehow been saved from certain collision with our enemies. I had a great team around me who believed in me and seemingly always had. And unlike my work on Decreeta, where everyone had been working to their own agendas, here everyone was working for the same result: peace and freedom. It wasn't that I felt invincible suddenly, for I knew everything that could still go wrong against such a dangerous and deadly foe. Somehow, though, thanks to my spiritual experience with the teller and the support of my friends, I felt at peace in a way I hadn't all the way through this quest, or indeed my life. And just at the point where everyone else was beginning to get jittery, I actually felt like a leader. We stopped off at Ducius, where Geraldine and I were overjoyed to be reunited with JJJJJ again. We congratulated him on the fine job he had done contacting everyone, and for his choice of shuttle, which was still doing 989 quadzillion light years to the gallon of distilled Clandesbrod crystal juice, and had only needed 2 refills, despite zigzagging around the universe 10 times. It seemed like the whole of Ducius had come out to cheer us on, and the landing bay was packed with figures all waving homemade banners and wishing us luck as far as the eye could see, which in truth wasn't that far given how large the Dewsbury Giants were. Our final charm was a good luck trinket for when, and an unspoken word if, we had won. On closer inspection I could see it was an Earth donut covered in sauces from 9 other worlds, known locally as an intergalactic peace cake. I gladly stowed it away in the shuttle, along with the foosballs and other objects. As for the battle souvenir, JJJJJ turned up with what looked like a cream pie. I knew by now not to underrate our hosts, so even though I was itching to tell them to get something more sensible, I just smiled back as the Dewsbury handed it to me to inspect. Everything was as ready as it could be. There was just one thing to do. I went and had a word with JJJJJ, asking if I would be all right to broadcast one last message to our portion of the universe. This speech became known as the Eleron Peace Declaration. Dearest friends, families, loved ones, acquaintances and strangers who are friends that I have yet to meet, the time has come to ask you, as your president, to make your sacrifice along with me. I know that many of you have heard of my journey across the stars in search of a means to defeat the alien invaders who have promised to plunder and vanquish the Earth, and by extension, so we fear, the rest of our corner of the universe with it. I have even been lucky enough to meet some of you on our travels across the stars. On these journeys to your glorious planets, I was struck over and over again not by the differences between us, but by the similarities. Although we look all different, and sometimes we act differently, and we would talk different languages if not for the clandestine translator circuits, the questions you all asked me were the same the universe over. Will we be safe? Will my family be safe? Will strangers be safe? What can we do to protect our society, our history, our civilization from these people? The answer to all of this is that, honestly, I don't know. But I do know that your help will enable us to be stronger together than we could ever have been alone. I have met 10 wonderful colleagues who have risked so much to help me, and many millions more of you who have come out to see us. To put my plan into action, I need all of you, and though I didn't spend nearly enough time on any one of your planets, I already feel I know you well enough that you won't let me down. I have a plan. I hope that it will work and that you won't be needed. But I know that you don't get second chances at history, so I ask you to be my backup plan just in case. So fly with us, or preferably just a parsec or two behind us, as we leave here for Decreeta straight after making this message for you all. Follow on behind us and show these aliens that they will have to take down not just our ship or a military fleet, but billions upon quadzillions of you. Thankfully, Decreeta is right in the middle of all our homeworlds, chosen deliberately so we could represent all of you, so we should all arrive, roughly, at the same time. I do not make this request lightly, or take your friendship for granted. I know that 99.9% of you have never travelled to another planet before. We'd only just learned to get along, evolutionary speaking, and our friendship and loyalty is still new, barely formed, so I hate to test it so soon. I know that many of our worlds still view some of their neighbours with suspicion, have long histories of disagreements with others, or are still getting used to the fact that we don't live in the universe in glorious isolation. I have always believed, however, that there is more reason to hope than to fear for our futures, that ultimately there is more friendship than rivalry between our 10 planets, and that the cautious stalemate that seems to exist between us is secretly a bond that would never be broken when put to the test. Well, that test is here now, before us, and to pass it, we have to stand together. How do we stand together, you ask? Why do we stand together? Is it a good idea? To answer that, I first want to share with you a question I have been asking myself ever since undertaking this plan of action. What do we have in common, at our core? What is it that has made us allies, reluctant or grudging as it may be? On our part of the universe, while unknown to us, our enemies spent the same time invading and plundering each other. Why am I now, the democratic head of an intergalactic union, hoping that my pleas will reach your ears rather than the feared tyrant making demands? Because all of our civilizations learnt a long time ago, some longer than others admittedly, but we learnt it all the same, that fear is not the best way forward for a planet. Friendship and cooperation are the best tools for a happy society. Not a perfect society maybe, but a kinder, better one for sure. One where nobody is left behind, rather than the select few having their own needs met, and where we all benefit from the inventions of each other. Love, friendship, cooperation. This is what makes us who we are, and separates us from our enemies, who only seem to know hate and jealousy and greed and conquest. Even if it comes in different shades and styles from our 10 different planets, it's still there. I feel it on every planet I visit. I hear it from everyone I speak to. I see it everywhere I go. I sense it with all of my 32 Mrasianart extrasensory senses. After all, you could all have told me to get lost, but you didn't want to get involved, and I was half afraid that was exactly what you would do. But instead you all cared about not just your own futures, but each other's. Throughout this journey I've been struck by just how kind and helpful your planets have been. Even the ones who think this has nothing to do with you, or you're scared of reprisals, or are used to dealing with big events your own way. You still all took the time to help me, and our human cousins in need. I don't take that lightly. Think about it, all of the other inevitabilities of life are gone. Since meeting each other and trading our pills and potions, only some of our species know what death is. Some of your overpopulated worlds have strict rules on birth, so that's not a universal concept either. Only some of us know true guilt, or infested joy, or complete and utter terror, and our ideas of peace vary wildly, as I know to my cost negotiating with you all. However, we all of us know what love is. From what I've heard of these aliens, what makes them so completely alien to us is that they don't know the meaning of cooperation, or friendship, or love, only fear and conquest. And that's what truly makes them alien to us. Not the way they look, or where they come from. Now I know some of you want revenge, and to blow these aliens out of the sky to be on the safe side. And I understand why. But to do so would be wrong. It would be making us like them. Attacking us doesn't mean we should show our enemies the hate they just show us, that they don't know about love and how good communities sharing with each other can be, the way we all do. Just think about that, how differently our worlds might all have been if we didn't know what those concepts of love and friendship and cooperation meant. Why, you ask, should we pity our enemies and try to defeat them in peace when they come to defeat us in war? Well, I ask you to pity them because they are only doing what their ruler tells them. They suffer nothing more than being born at the wrong end of the universe, under a cruel tyrannical power that didn't allow them the time to learn what we, all of us, have come to realise, that together is better. Just think about how if one of us had evolved with weapons so strong that we could wipe out our 9 neighbours without even learning their names. We would all have evolved in fear, the same, scuttling away from our neighbours. We wouldn't have had the need for the ego and pride of the Belobrat, or the Glabdahardit's instinct for survival at all costs, or the Clandesbrot's sense of community, or the Mrasianart's sense of wonder, or the Mechion ability with technology and logic, or the Habitat's sense of humour, or the Dewsbury Giant's recipes, or the Camalosian's gift of legalese, or the McGrump's directness, or the human... whatever it is you guys have. For we would all have been too busy spending our lives living in fear as our one combined character trait. And if the ruler had told us to jump, we would have asked, oh, what gravitational pull? In fear of our lives, rather than work together to get rid of them, as we seek to do now. Underneath it all, though, we are all much the same. Well, give or take the extra head and limbs. I used to think that travelling the universe would reveal to me just how different we all are, living our differently styled lives on our differently coloured planets with our different priorities, hopes and goals. Instead, travelling has made me feel as if I was looking in a slightly distorted mirror, where everyone was more or less the same as those at home. Vaguely decent, essentially kind, more or less hopeful, secretly determined to live a better life. I put it to you that life is life, wherever it may be, and we all have a right to it, even our enemies, once their cruel leader has been taken away from them. Love. That's how we're going to win against creatures who hate. Now let me make a distinction here. Why then shouldn't we just let these aliens invade us if we're meant to love them? Love doesn't mean we should let these aliens do what they like, though. We are still saying no, even if we are saying it with love. Now saying no is the hardest word for a politician like me to say. After all, saying yes is my job in oh so many ways. We want people to like us. We want to be able to step in and say we can save them. It is, after all, easier to say yes, to let people do their own thing, even when it hurts you. To get you votes, to be liked, to seem as if you're giving people what they want you to give them. That's the way we Mrasianarts are brought up, to think of others before ourselves. Most of you are the same too, I know. We treasure the people we love and want them to have everything we ask for. One lesson I've learnt in all of this, however, is that you can still love someone and yet tell them no and keep to your boundaries. Sometimes what someone wants or how they act really isn't fair on you. Whether they're here to invade you, whether they're in a relationship with you, whether they're your work colleagues up to something on the side, whether they're your friends you've spent many long years with. Sometimes people go too far. They push against you and demand things you shouldn't have to give. They have ways of making you want to say yes to them, whether it's withholding the things that please you or the anger they unleash if you say no to them, or whether it's demanding you sign over whole planets and turn everyone into slaves. Anything that hurts someone else is not something any of us should give, no matter how big or how small. I used to stare up at the sky at night, seeing just the distances between us, the gaps in space, the boundaries that set us apart from one another. In my own naive head, I wanted to tear those boundaries down, to unite us so that we were truly all one and the same. However, one thing I've learnt is that boundaries can be good, but sometimes it's all right to say no. The universe doesn't end just because you refuse to accommodate someone's unreasonable behaviour. Sometimes we need to protect our boundaries more, to honour the provinces that exist between us, even if saying no is the hardest word, whether that be to a horde of invading aliens or the person you love. But say it, you must. So join me Join us, not for yourselves, not for your country, certainly not for your kings or queens or prime ministers, or even for me, your intergalactic president, but for each and every single one of us. Whatever happens today, however my plan goes, it has truly been my pleasure and honour meeting and working with all of you. I wish you good luck and send you all my deep-hearted thanks. I wish I could shake you all by the hands, yes, even those of you with multiple limbs, but for now this message will have to do. Detailed instructions of where and when in your local time will now follow, provided by your elected member travelling with me. But for now, this is President Eleron, signing off and wishing you good luck, every one of you. I have heard since that there was a great deal of applause around the universe after this speech, but of course I couldn't hear that right there and then. All I could hear was a polite applause of a few Dewsbury giants who broke off from meeting long enough to congratulate me. A rare compliment on Deuceus, so I was to learn. I was half afraid they were going to throw rotten food at me. Deuceus' biggest insult. Each member of my crew then stepped up to speak into the Universal with predetermined instructions for where to go and when concerning their own planet. Thank goodness for Quincy working out all the timings, as we still didn't have universal time yet. His incredible brain had become such an asset to us on this trip. Finally, JJJ was last to speak into the broadcasting device, giving the instructions to his fellow giants and explaining to them that if we were to let him, he would be glad to go with us and represent Deuceus in our great showdown. The audience serenaded him by showering him with what looked like crisps, another rare showing of approval, so I was to learn. Our work done on our final planet, there was nothing more we could do, so we walked to the shuttle bay, marvelling at all the Deuceus craft so similar to our own, all parked and ready to follow us. JJJ had arranged to bring us the missing final piece of the sculpture, which was loaded into the back of the shuttle, along with a large wheeled trolley, and more provisions than the rest of us could have collectively eaten in a year, but which she told us were to stop him feeling peckish. Waving goodbye to the assembled crowds, Jennifer put the craft into gear, and our shuttle took off on what was the most important, and perhaps the final, journey we would ever make. Queen Calixta disembarked from her shuttle. She hadn't been as successful as she'd hoped, and still hadn't found this wretched Eleron fellow, but, well, time was on her side, and she had just created endless destruction and devastation on 2 alien planets. Endless destruction and devastation were the kind of things Queen Calixta liked to do for fun, and it had put her in a good mood. Anyway, maybe her hive had managed to get some more information out of her prisoners. She knew well how badly they would want to impress her in their absence. Better yet, it looked from this universal alien device as if this feathered alien would soon be president after all. Maybe she wouldn't even have to wait for Eleron, for all the planets to be hers. Smiling to herself that Agrosians had never been defeated yet, she smarmed her way across the wild weather of Decreeta and into the IPO headquarters, where she assumed that things would look much like they had before. Only they didn't. Across from Queen Calixta, in the middle of the room, she could see all 5 members of her hive, covered in a variety of foul-smelling produce, clearly the work of idle alien minds who didn't know good gruel when they ate it. Dotted around them were her prisoners, released and standing guard with the hive's own guns. Well, all except Doris, who had been such a nuisance that the others had left her tied up in a corner and forgotten about her. Queen Calixta was furious. How had this happened? She had trained her soldiers well, and they all knew the severe penalty for anything going wrong. These aliens were weak and should have been easily defeated. The only explanation was that this mysterious president had somehow got back ahead of her and overwhelmed her troops. Peering closely, she could see that one of these alien beings was new, and certainly a hybrid. It didn't seem at all like the description she'd been given, but it must be Eleron. After all, they had come out of nowhere. Angrily, Queen Calixta strode through the door and reached out at the stranger, sending all the creatures in the room into a wild frenzy of commotion.
"Empress!"
shrieked Posh.
You again?
Said Horace, turning round with a hive gun still in his hand.
"Wow!" said Gosh. "We're in trouble now. Save us, new friend."
However, Queen Calixta only had eyes for the stranger. Surrounded by Hive A, she ordered them to point their weapons at these aliens and told this figure who had mysteriously appeared to order the 10 planets over to her immediately.
I can't do that.
The figure stammered, with a higher-pitched voice than Queen Calixta had been expecting.
They're not mine to give.
"What do you mean?
Shouted Queen Calixta.
Are you not the president?"
No.
Said Airglow.
I'm the First Lady.
Fine.
said Queen Calixta.
First Lady, First President, whatever you call it on this planet, I don't mind. Just hand over official control of your planet over to me now.
I don't think you understand,
Said Eglo.
I'm not.
President anymore.
Said Horace quickly.
I am, so leave Eleron alone. The few days are up while you've been away. Eleron's presidential role officially hands over to me, madam.
And he quickly showed his universal channel to Queen Calixta, which had just magically burst into life an hour or so before, while he was in the middle of a fascinating chat with the hive minds about the rather practical jokes on their planet, which had led to a lengthy discussion where he tried to describe the joys of napping to a species that were always worked so hard they weren't allowed to sleep. No wonder they were so irritable.
Fine.
Said Queen Calixta.
You see, Eleron, you've tried to outsmart me, but you were too late. There's nothing that can save you now. The moment your new president signs all the planets over to me, you will all become part of my colony, and I shall enjoy your destruction in particular.
Yes, indeed, madam.
Bowed Horace, taking Eglo by the wing and pretending they were a couple.
I see it hopeless to deceive you. There's just one small matter. We have a lot of paperwork on this side of the universe. It will take a very long time to process.
You better get started then,
Said Queen Calixta evilly.
and I'll take that gun.
Reluctantly, Horace handed it over. The second the weapon changed hands, the five all changed sides. Gosh spoke up first.
We're ready to serve you, O Queen, and to show no mercy to these evil-laden tricksters.
The IPO all groaned at being sold out.
Absolutely.
Said Wash.
Good gracious, yes, positively, absolutely, blimey. Jolly good show, what?
Added Posh. Queen Calixta turned to Hive A and pointed at Hive B.
I'd hose those jokers down with H2O, or whatever the nearest thing is on this planet. I'll deal with them later.
Futsal Universal Entry delayed. AB 5449364988810. Rise Universal Systems Key Code. Citizen Eleron. Headline: Mission to Decreeta 2. Retrieved from Universal Records. Office.
I looked around the shuttle, where everyone seemed to be in growing meditation. Well, apart from the Habradat who was asleep, the Dewsbury Giant who was eating, and of course the Glabdahardit who was concentrating on flying. Closing my eyes, I recounted our plan over in my mind until I thought I had the details as off-pat as I could. That task completed, I did what I had always done when in trouble of late, and thought back to what Oberon would have done. Well, I sighed, that was no good. He'd have just produced a wazoola or a trumpet and sung these mysterious strangers to death. So I tried to think what my mother, Eleanor, would have done, and got no further. She would have told me to hang on and hope for the best. But what best could there be? Next I turned to Enwyn and Lizzie for help, but all I got from their spirits inside my head was to find a way to solve the differences between us and these aliens, something I didn't fancy trying when we no doubt had the IPO captive. So instead of turning inward, the way my Mrasianart instincts told me to, I looked outward and stared out the window, remembering in my head where each of the planets I had visited were, and wondering if I would ever see them again, and thinking about all the people out there rooting for us who might be coming to our aid. I didn't like the growing quiet in the shuttle, which seemed to make everyone else turn inward, just as I was going the other way, nor the glassy-eyed stare that greeted me every time I looked around, nor apparently did Geraldine, who whispered in my ear, "Eleron, I'm scared. Shouldn't we be seeing other shuttles in our rearview mirror by now?" "Yes," I whispered back. "I've been trying not to think about it, but one of the planet's shuttles at least should be in view by now. I'm scared too." "I knew that you would be, but please say something comforting and reassuring to us all, the way you do in your speeches." "All right," I said, noticing that the others were all looking at me expectantly and feeling that I had to say something. "You see that?" I said, pointing to the window.
Yes,
Replied Balthazar.
the pitch blackness of space, what of it?
"No," I said. "Look more closely. At first, all you can see is the darkness, it's true, and the unknown out there looks scary and threatening and empty compared to your cosy home. But just as you get used to the idea of the world being dark, you suddenly notice all the pinpricks of light scattered everywhere, like little dots of hope thrown up at the sky, as if hope is trying to break through our fear and ignorance. Whenever I feel lost and hopeless, and as if the world is completely, utterly dark, with nothing to live for, I go and stare at the night sky and count the stars. and wonder about all the beings out there that we haven't discovered yet. To think that I'd never been away from Mars until a week ago, and now the constellations out there seem familiar, like old friends. In other circumstances, I'd be really enjoying this trip and the chance to visit all your wonderful planets. We still have so much of the universe to explore, though. I mean, look at all those stars twinkling away. Some of them must have other worlds attached to them, with kind, noble aliens attached to them. After all, there are 10 planets just like that on our side of the universe, who I now count as dear friends. I wonder which one of those stars the aliens came from. Geraldine tried to join in. Same here. It's all so spacey, she said, to no one in particular. I forget sometimes what a huge universe this is. Quincy, who was next to her, responded.
The cosmos is constantly expanding outwards from its centre of darkness, ignorance and confusion, a little like your own social media.
I could tell Geraldine was about to wallop him one, so I interrupted. I wonder if we all see the same things as we look at those lights.
You mean the collection of plasma held into place by gravity and emitting nuclear fusion?
Said the Mechion.
Parts of its space and grew,
Said the McGrumph. A potential species we haven't met yet in a universe teeming with life, said the Clandesprod.
A new place to explore before anyone else.
Said the Belobrat.
Present company accepted, of course.
a new party hitherto to be known as a second party,
Said the Camelosian. Squeaked the Glabdahardit from the front.
A star circled by a possible vacation planet.
Said the Hapridad.
A star circled by planets with potential new foods.
Said the Dewsbury Giant, licking her lips.
Something poetic and beautiful.
The Mrasianbrat breathed. The universe is all of those things, I said, and many more that we can't possibly imagine yet. And if our corner of it is to survive, then it needs people like you, all of you. What a great team you've become. Whatever happens now, I want you to know how brave and selfless all of you have been. Many have laughed at my vision of a cooperative, helpful universe, I know, but today, looking at all of you, I can only say that my vision of a supportive galaxy where everyone helps their neighbours out, sees the bigger picture, and nobody that gets left behind seems as real as it ever has. This whole journey to here has felt as if I was pulling away from one tiny spot to see the entire universe for what it really is, beyond my Mrasianart horizons into space. Whatever these aliens throw at us, it has been my privilege to serve as your president. I only hope that my plan is good enough to save us all, and that I can be as worthy of you as you have been of me. We couldn't have asked for a more inspiring leader, said Geraldine as the others all cheered.
I do wonder, though,
said Alia, staring out the window.
why events like this have to happen at all in a universe like ours. I mean, looking out at those stars, there has to have been some sort of a plan for us all, wasn't there?
Horatio shrugged.
Sometimes good things happen to bad people, and bad things happen to good people.
Why does it happen, though? Asked Geraldine. So that we can all learn from it, I suppose, I said thoughtfully.
Nonsense.
Said Quincy.
Logically, you must all know that we live in a purely random universe where anything can happen to anyone. It only seems to happen to bad people because we notice that more.
Horace,
Said Mrasianbrat.
I've just said sometimes it do.
It's because life is terrifying.
Said Jennifer.
It's because our Creator knows we're all up to the challenge, said
Balthazar.
It's because stress makes you hungry so you can eat more, said
JJJJJ. It's to teach you how you can help others going through a hard time and pull together as a community, said Auntie C.
It's a necessary practice, Charles, for legal speak to override any existential complications experienced by the first party to the second party,
said Cornelius.
It's to teach us when life is all very stressful that we could all do with a rest.
Said Horatio.
And a joke to lighten up the mood. I say. What do you call a brat with a loud voice? A Belobrat. A Belobrat? No. Well, there must be something up in the clandestine translator service again, because that's a really good joke, and none of you were laughing.
Sensing a mercy kill, I interrupted. One last thing, I added. You are all such a strong team that it would be remiss of me not to ask you for one last piece of advice each before going into battle. One of the things I wanted to do when I became your leader was to listen to everyone who would talk to me. Please know that I value everything you might have to tell me. I went round the shuttle, one by one, hugging as many of my companions as I could without disturbing our progress, which was particularly difficult when I leant over a little too assertively and nearly squashed the pilot.
Never start a fight on an empty stomach,
said JJJJJ. Said Jennifer.
Survival means we live to fight another day.
Remember that underneath it we are all one clan, we all work together, said Auntie C.
Roll with the punches,
said Horatio.
live in the moment, don't stress, be prepared to change your plan on the go if necessary, we'll all back you.
Do what you have to do in order to create a course for least harm to the universe.
Said Quincy.
Ultimately, it doesn't matter what happens to us, but to our people.
If I didn't know him better, I'd say he even seemed a little emotional. Always ascertain the theory that the semiotic fitness of a perform text varies according to the auxiliary performance codes holds up under current protocols, said Cornelius.
You don't need me,
said Mariadne.
be proud of yourself for getting this far.
Beamed Balthazar.
And if you got this far, that means you could do anything, and so can I mean, we.
Go deep.
Said Alia.
Look within. I believe you have what it takes to do this. Because you have.
Just be you, Eleron, said Geraldine. I know you have what it takes to do this. Stop doubting yourself and believe. In a quieter, less triumphant voice, though, she whispered to me. Thank you. I feel better for that. Your speeches always do that for me. I'm sorry it hasn't worked, though. I still can't see any shuttles in the sky. Let's just give them a bit longer, I said. I trust the universe. Have faith. It's out there, even though all we can see is darkness at first. Blimey, you've changed, laughed Geraldine. Isn't it usually my role to cheer you up? I smiled, wondering how to explain my experience on Mars to her, and Geraldine opened her mouth to say something in response, but changed her mind mid-word and pointed behind me. Look, she said. Then were thousands upon thousands of shuttles in all sorts of different sizes, from the small nifty furry clad Harden ships to the massive red Dewsbury giant vessels that were as large as ours, via the conjoined sparkly coloured ships of Zigguris 3, the speedy slinking metallic triangles with three flashing red lights from Mechion 5, the saucer-shaped craft from Helisphere, the white tic-tac shaped ships from Camelosia, the bumpy blue vessels from the Grumphus, the meandering roulet-coloured shuttles from Abridas, the hovering purple ships from Raz, the goldless white rockets from Earth, and even the yellow shopping shuttles from Astescasons that had joined in as thanks to the IPO sorting out the planet's long-running tug-of-war between the Grumphus and Camelosia. We had hoped for maybe a few hundred shuttles to turn up. Well, I secretly figured we were lucky to have as many as half a dozen. But this was more than I could ever have hoped for in my wildest dreams, as the sky filled up with more and more shuttles, to the point where there must have been quadzillions of them. And behind them, more of the same, layer upon layer upon layer, until they blotted out even the infinity of space, lighting up every inch of the sky. You see, I said to Geraldine, tears in my eyes, the sky is flecked with signs of hope after all. Flecked, she said. The sky is positively illuminated. It's so beautiful. With that, there was nothing else to say, so I held my wing out and shook everyone by whatever limb they had, until all 11 of us in the shuttle were as one, laughing and pointing out the vehicles that belonged to our home world.
Of course, my other shuttle is a Ferrari King, the most expensive in the universe.
Said Balthazar proudly.
Wait, what? Why are you looking at me like that?
Universal entry delayed. AB 54493649826. Mars Universal Systems key code. Citizen Eleron. Headline: Mission to Decreeta 3. Retrieved from the Universal Records Office.
We had parked our shuttle far enough away from the Decreeta headquarters so as to be hidden, but not so far it wouldn't be useful in a hurry. And got out, our plan in action at last. Shush, whispered Quincy to Jennifer as JJJJJ accidentally stood on her tail. But otherwise we were wordless and silent as we put together our statue on a special Ducius wheeled trolley. The statue went up in order using Quincy's anti-gravity device. It had the feet of the Dewsbury giant, the knees of the Glabdahardid, the thighs of the Clandusprod, the lower torso of the Mechion, the upper torso of the Camelosian, the paws of the Grumph, the wings of the Habridat, the neck of the Mrasianbrat, the head of the Belobrat, and the sticky out hair of the human. It was 100 feet tall, was painted 10 clashing, vibrant colours, and towered into the sky, looking most impressive. Stepping into the top of it, into the hollowed out part in the middle, I felt like the biggest being in the universe suddenly, instead of one of the smallest. All my companions took their places in the statue too, hidden away in its crevices. I hoped that these aliens wouldn't look too closely, or they might have seen the holes, or perhaps worked out that our statue was built of 10 different materials, rather than a living, breathing being. Well, I figured, if our idea went to plan, they would be too busy running away to look very closely. And who knew what creatures looked like, half a universe away? The statue was wheeled into place by JJJJJ, who took his place inside the bottom row. As we got nearer to the door, my heart leapt as I spotted Airglow behind the tall and, I had to admit, rather impressive-looking alien who was holding a gun on her. No, not my Airglow. This had to work, and quick. Amazingly, no one had spotted us, preoccupied as they were with events inside the IPO building. Well, there was nothing more I could do except try out our plan. Here goes. I gave the word to my team to be ready, and spoke into the megaphone Auntie C had given me.
I'm Eleron, Intergalactic President. A doogla who clan metcan grubfab Mrasianart. As you can see, I am a hybrid made up of all 10 species from this side of the universe, and I have the special powers of all of them. This alien then rushed outside with all 10 of her hive at her feet, and Airglow still clutched in her arms, and said,
I'm Queen Calixta, ruler of 110 planets, an undefeated champion of our side of the universe. What are these special powers of yours?
Unfortunately, these beings didn't look as scared as I hoped they might. Our next move could do something about that, though. I hoped for the best and spoke our next cue word.
Behold!
I yelled as loudly as I could. On cue, the 10 beings below me all released their own special gadgets they had brought with them on their travels. The Dewsbury Giant flung a giant cream pie at Squash. Jennifer screamed in fright through a gadget so loudly that it made Posh, the hive member nearest to her, jump. Geraldine threw a garden rake down neatly in front of Dosh, who unseeing walked into it, whereupon it leapt up to bop him on his nose. The Clandesprod device made it rain precisely over the head of poor Wash. The Mechion let off a giant explosion right next to Gosh. Kosh was tied up in knots by the Instamatic Camelosian device normally used for binding legal documents together, which then bit him on the tail. And the Grump Fanball dropped on top of Tosh. A series of habridat pranks and practical jokes hurled onto the head of Bosch, whose face turned black and spotty, while he was most confused by the sound of a whoopee cushion and terrified at the sight of a plastic algebra looming out at him. A Belobrat boxing glove on a string smashed into the face of Nosh. And my karma machine flew out of the top of the statue's head to follow Queen Calixta around and show her the dark side she kept hidden within, demonstrating to her the error of her ways via a series of unfortunate events where she tripped over, cut her fingers on her crown, and caught an instant virus, developing constant burping, sneezing, and coughing, all at once. In an instant, these aliens had gone from being terrible warriors to terrified beings, so much so that we felt quite sorry for them. All the more so when in the panic Queen Calixta found herself tripping over them all and getting choked by the crown that promptly fell down onto her neck. I spoke again.
Hear me, Queen Calixta. You will never conquer any of our planets, for you are small and puny, a mere fraction of my size, and there are many millions more like me patrolling the universe, keeping every being safe. For everyone has the right to peace and freedom, to be free of puny scared bullies like you. Go, and never darken our universe with your space shuttles ever again.
I thought you said your president was small.
Queen Calixta yelled at Horace. He shrugged his shoulders, numb with shock, something which seemed to irritate Queen Calixta almost as much as it irritated me. She turned back towards me. This wasn't going as well as I'd hoped. Though the hive were all quaking like a Gabdahard at Nerf jelly, Queen Calixta looked almost unruffled.
You may have quality on your side,
She sneered.
but you don't have quantity, and that's the only thing that can finish me. I've been reading up on you, Eleron. I know that you are peaceful and have never killed, and that you are the only one of your kind. If I can defeat you, you have nothing left. Your beings here have already been defeated by us.
Darn, I thought to myself. That'd have been our plan too. Oh well.
Unfortunately for you, you have no information on me, so you won't know what is in store for you. Tell them about your own past history, Hive.
All at once, the 10 hive members all began chatting at once. Somewhere in the melee, I caught snatches of sentences. That this planet had been annihilated except for a few stragglers. That this planet had been forced into slavery. That the other had been turned into a giant sign that read Queen Calixta rules the best in ginormous letters that could be seen from Agrosia, that the locals had to polish every day in return for their life.
Tell me, Eleron,
Queen Calixta continued, despite now developing a case of the hiccups.
why would even a being as colossal as you defy me, colonizer, or destroyer of 100 worlds?
I replied, improvising like mad. Because I am your opposite, the universe's first true intergalactic being, and I don't just have the might of one, but the knowledge of many. Queen Calixta looked blankly at me, so I continued. I learned to knit, sitting at the knee of my clandesprog parent. My favourite food came from the Dewsbury giant who turned me on to the cuisine their family taught them. I learned how to juggle thanks to a happy dad who told me it would help me make friends at parties. My favourite film was first shown to me by a Glabda harlot, and it was very scary. My favourite painting was first the favourite of a Mechion friend. I got this scarf from a Belobrat who threw me lovingly into the air a little too hard and failed to catch me because she thought she knew better about my safety than my mother did. I learned how to write in cursive script thanks to my Camalosian teacher. I learned how to swear because of a McGrumph exchange student. Every night I listened to something on my music playlist my Mrasianbrat father made for me to hear growing up, and every night I look back over messages my human mother wrote for me. I wear the necklace my Mrasianbrat wife once made me with pride. Every time something happens in my life that reminds me of one of those things, I think of them and what they gave me. My life has been a journey of crazy paving created by at least one of every being in our side of the universe who all coexist inside me, however slight. I know the history of every single species that's ever lived on our side of the galaxy, can name you 100 favourite songs or paintings or films from each planet, and I love them all, equally and without prejudice, and believe in them all. That's why me, because I know that whilst your side of the universe was learning how to fight you singly and were conquered one at a time, my side of the universe has a million different ways of seeing the universe, and an ability to learn from each other. We come together for the good of everyone, and if you threaten one of us, you threaten all of us. Queen Calixta looked at statue me thoughtfully, trying to work out if I was telling the truth or not. Finally she leaned up towards me, staring deep into my statue soul, before whispering, slowly and deliberately, as close to my ear as she could, as a shiver went down my spine.
If your civilizations are really so civilized, then you will all have got rid of your weapons a long time ago, and will have forgotten how to fight. With no wars, your military will be old and weak, or perhaps non-existent altogether. I will be able to conquer every single one of your planets at once, and be hailed on Agrosia as the greatest military leader of them all.
Suddenly this wasn't going well, and I was having to improvise around my plan, never a Mrasianart's strongest point. We can learn again, I croaked. All of our planets have some form of a military past, even my home of Mars. When something we love is threatened, you'll be surprised at how many will fight a just fight to stop you. Queen Calixta sneered dismissively.
You have all forgotten how. For all your size, you are a weak leader who doesn't understand the joy of conquest.
This was really not going to plan at all. My sixth sense could tell my friends were getting shaky and losing faith in the plan. I could even hear Geraldine's knees knocking above me.
Well,
Queen Calixta continued,
you are too late anyway, Eleron. I know that you are no longer president as of a few hours ago. Your new intergalactic president Horace here, or at least I presume that's who his bird brain really is, has already started signing over your worlds to me. This means that under the Agrosian protocol, I can now do what I like with prisoners. And I will start now with this one.
So saying, she grabbed a weapon off the nearest chattering hive member, Nosh, and aimed it straight at Airglow. Instinctively I sent her a telepathic message, and she leapt aside at the last second as an alien thunderbolt danced towards her. No! I yelled as, without thinking, I leapt from the head of the statue onto the top of Queen Calixta. Well, I thought there goes the end of my trip with the statue, but I wasn't going to let this alien harm Eglo, even if it meant losing the universe to do so. I didn't seem to do her any damage. I had at least knocked the weapon out of Queen Calixta's hand and at Horace's feet. The Habrodat quickly, as coolly as if he'd been waiting for this moment all his life, picked it up and wordlessly aimed it at the chief alien. The Hive aimed their weapons at him in turn.
I knew you'd show up sooner or later, Eleron,
Horace said matter-of-factly. Eglo, meanwhile, simply goggled from her position in my arms, while the other IPOers all stared dumbfounded.
Ha!
Laughed Queen Calixta, unperturbed as she picked herself up.
This is your real champion? This puny pipsqueak? He's the smallest creature I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, a puny pipsqueak with a lot of friends, one of whom is a gun trained on you right now, I said, more coolly than I felt.
I still have the advantage over you, Eleron.
Queen Calixta spat.
We outnumber you weapon-wise 9-1.
Oh, I'm sorry, let me explain. I didn't just mean my friends here, I said airily. You keep missing the bigger picture, and forget one very important thing, Queen Calixta. You might be able to shoot a lot of us, but never all of us. There are too many for you. We, on the other hand, only have to shoot you once, and your quest is finished. That's the problem with dictatorships compared to democracies. There is never anyone as strong to take your place, and then it's all over. Queen Calixta snorted.
You think the IPO is a match for my trained men? A bunch of pacifist no-gooders?
They are not the only people from the IPO here. We have members and supporters and believers on all 10 planets, I said, asterisking Earth in my mind as I said it. Come out, crew. Make sure you stay armed. My 10 fellow travellers wearily made their way out of the statue, holding their sort of weapons. Queen Calixta blinked, but still continued her menacing speech.
10 new beings?
She sneered.
Well, that made you last double the length of time before you died than I expected, I suppose. Though still not long enough to stop me.
Actually, I didn't mean them either, I stated. Like I say, you keep missing the bigger picture. With all this emphasis on war and pillaging, we're all going to stop you. Every last one of us.
You and whose army?
Demanded Queen Calixta. No armies, I said. That's not how we fight anymore on this side of the universe. They're archaic and best left in museums rather than taking up precious budget space. Instead, there are several quadzillions of us in the sky, each waiting to do their bit and make the ultimate sacrifice if it comes to it. Many more beings than you've ever seen in your lifetime, all with the same goal of defeating you and living in peace with each other. This isn't like the planets you've conquered and set against each other in the past. This is a partnership of a size you've never experienced before.
Where?
Snarled Queen Calixta, but less confidently than before. Up there, I said carelessly as her eyes went skywards. Those quadzillions of space shuttles in the sky that each contain several hundred beings, all of them with uncountable differences, but united in their struggle against you. You might take a few of us down with you, Alien Queen, but you won't defeat them all. Not on your own, with an army of 10 who serve you through fear alone, and who all seem to be running away from you as we speak. I couldn't count how many shuttles there are in the sky right now, but I'm sure there must be at least 1 billion of them. And I'm not sure you have enough bullets, with far more to come behind them. Right on cue, Decreeta's sun was blotted out by the arrival of fleet after fleet of shuttles. They filled the sky and encircled Decreeta in orbit, as instructed, multiple shuttles deep. These are the friends I meant, I added carelessly. The other thing you have forgotten is that as a dictatorship, you only get to take planets one at a time. In a democracy, we get to help each other out all at the same time. There are a lot of us, as you can see. I think that means we win. Queen Calixta pressed a few buttons on a digital device and held it up to the sky, as if checking how many ships there were. I looked a bit sick when she saw the result. Later speculation suggested that as many as 7,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000 shuttles out there in space. She tried to press her anti-building device and the IPO headquarters wobbled into the air. However, all the weight of the different metals used to make it from all the different planets involved in its construction meant that it was heavier than those on individual planets, and it simply went back down to the ground again. The device did not work on shuttles either, or indeed any object in space, as it relied on reversing the polarity of the planet's gravity flow. All that pressing the button over and over did was make Queen Calixta hurt her fingers. Finally she threw the machine away and tried one last rallying cry.
Do you not see this crown?
She yelled, desperate at last.
I am your ruler. You will obey me, Queen Calixta. Everyone does in the end. My people are undefeated.
Do you not see these people? I said, calmer than I felt. These many, many people. This is a democracy. We rule ourselves. We won't answer to any one individual, even a big scary one in a crown. Even my role is taken on the understanding that it is temporary and can be taken away from me at any time if enough people don't like the job I do. Some of the species do more ruling than others, admittedly, but I'm doing my best to change that. We certainly don't do tyrants, dictators, bullies or royalty. No one has the divine right to dictate how others in the universe do anything.
Why?
Queen Calixta said, bewildered, the idea clearly an alien concept to her. Goodness knows what the translation of democracy was in Agrosian.
Our ways work perfectly well for many millennia on our side of the galaxy. Our people eat well, live good, useful lives in service, and we have technologies you cannot dream of. What else could you ever possibly want?
Freedom, I said. Peace. Maybe it's worked perfectly well for you, this arrangement, ma'am, because you were at the top of the food chain and couldn't see the harm you did. But not for your people. They work hard through fear because they are scared of you. We work hard out of love, for we care about each other. Eventually, I said, glancing at the nearest Earth shuttle, and that is a better way for everyone, the way it should be, not just those at the top. We have a saying on Mars, never trust anyone who comes to you wearing a crown, for how can they do anything else but look down on those of you who wear a hat? And only one person gets to wear a crown. Everyone has the chance to wear a hat. I put it to you, citizen Calixta, that a planet of many, filled with cooperation, is a better arrangement for the universe than one made up of fear and everyone else running around scared.
Those of us on Helisphere wear free hats.
Said Balthazar. We all looked at him.
Just saying.
He continued. Now tell your hive to put down their weapons and surrender, I continued. It's the only way your life or your empire can possibly survive now.
All right,
Said Queen Calixta, more than a little sadly.
all of you hives, put down your weapons.
Almost to herself she continued, hanging her head.
The shame of it, the first Agrosian to be defeated in a million years.
Don't see it like that, I said as kindly as I could to a ruthless dictator who just threatened everyone I loved. You are the first Agrosian to truly see the truth of how the universe should work, and now you can be the first to benefit from it. Well done, Eleron, said Geraldine.
Yahoo!
Cried Mrasianbrat.
Free cheers!
Said JJJJJ.
I feel the statue of ludical Ptolemy commencing forthwith,
Said Cordelius.
Oh, Eleron, you are marvellous, brilliant, fantastic, incredible, unbelievable, exceptional, inspired, gifted, accomplished, dazzling, radiant, luminous, stupendous,
Said Auntie C.
Your parents would have been so proud of you.
Said Elioth.
We couldn't have done any better.
So true.
Said Balthazar.
Even I couldn't have done any better. Eleron,
Beamed Egglo.
I never doubted you would save me.
Oh, I did, I smiled back. Lots and lots of times.
I guess I was only the second most important person in the universe for a minute there.
Continued Egglo.
Just a minute, Ryan.
You did pretty well yourself by the looks of things, I said. What was all that rot about not being brave again?
I suppose you will execute me now,
Said Queen Calixta sadly.
and with me will end the unbroken roll line that stretches back quadrillions of years.
It had to end sometime, Geraldine said kindly. Our own royal family were all imprisoned in the 21st century for despicable crimes against their own people. They all make a living as cleaners and fruit pickers now, even if they still live in palaces. We're not going to kill you, I said. We don't do that at our end of the universe. At least we don't do that anymore, and we don't do that while I'm in charge.
What do we do with her now, though?
Asked Horace, his gun still trained on Queen Calixta. I think we should let the hive decide, I said. They seem to have suffered at her hands more than any of us have, under our supervision, of course.
Well, she's always been wicked, cruel, sadistic and merciless. She was always fair.
I said cautiously, others nodded their heads.
It is our ancestors who have suffered at her hands.
Agreed Posh.
Queen Calixta didn't do that much to any of us. It was her elders. Indeed, she always saw that we were well fed.
Explained Nosh. And that sounds like a good enough mercy plea to me, I said, as I allowed myself to look around the IPO for the first time. I say we just keep her prisoner somewhere, perhaps here on Decreeta, but we can all keep an eye on her. Is everyone safe and well?
No, Eleron,
said Airglow, taking my wing possessively.
Bob died. He did it for my sake. I was trying to hatch a rescue plan that went wrong. I should have waited for you. I'll never forget him.
Nonsense, I said. If it wasn't for your bravery, these aliens might not have been distracted. They might have blown us into space before we had a chance to rescue you. Joe murmurs with, poor Bob.
So young.
For the hero.
So sad, he went and lost his head.
Bob died?
Said Balthazar, walking forward.
Where is he? Vaporized,
said Horace simply.
Oh, no,
said Balthazar sadly.
He was my protege. That's so much that he would have been able to do had he lived long enough to learn more about his place in the universe. Now we didn't have a triple-headed coffin to send back to his family.
The Belobrat stared at Calixta with a look of such intense hatred it quite shocked me.
This is all your fault,
he said.
As glad as I am that no more lives were lost than there are still more dead than would ever have died if you had never existed. Just because you have a merciful president doesn't mean I have to do exactly as he says. That's a democracy too.
Come back, Balthazar, I said, holding his arm, while Horace stood glumly on his other side to do the same. Thinking like them would just give the same result.
Oh, I'm not going to war with them,
said Balthazar, turning
to us. I just want Miss Bing to know how ashamed we are of her and her actions. All that scheming and conniving and killing. Not just us, but hundreds of other planets by the sound of it. Where's the sense in them? Why didn't you just ask for things if you wanted them? I'm sure there's plenty you could have given on your planet in return. We don't think like that, said Calixta shamefaced. That's such an alien concept to us. Well, snorted Balthazar, I don't know if you've noticed, but we're all aliens to each other here. That doesn't mean we can just do what we want. This is a bigger universe than it used to be. We have to think of each other now.
I'm sorry,
said Calixta slowly. I could easily believe that her mouth had never had to form those words, or technically the Agrosian equivalent before the Grandadsprat translators kicked in.
It's just not something I ever considered before. It wasn't until you defeated us that I realised quite what defeat was like. What going without was like. I never had to think about it before, on Agrosia.
You sound like us,
said Balthazar.
Back in our younger days, before hanging around the rest of the planets, knock the sharp edges off our natures. Now I can't imagine not thinking of others first every time I do something.
Auntie C snorted. But the way should be for every species in the first place, but Grandadsprat way. A thought occurred to me. How many of you are there, Calixta? On your planet? Agrosia, did you say? I never knew what the name was till just now. You seem less alien somehow now your planet has a name.
100,000 times. I'm the only pureblood.
Are the rest going to follow you here if you don't go home? I asked.
Oh no,
Queen Calixta said.
The Hive wouldn't do anything without me telling them.
Prove it, I said. Tell them now that they are free agents and no longer have to take orders from you anymore.
But
she said. Think of it as a condition of war if it helps, I said. We aren't going to vaporise you, though clearly we can't have you going home to raise an army either. Slowly, reluctantly, the Agrosian queen lifted her head to meet mine.
Very well,
the former ruler of Agrosia said, and lifted the device up to her mouth.
Hi,
she said.
As of this moment, you are now free. I am no longer your ruler, and you no longer need to follow my orders. I abdicate.
She handed a crown to me. Rather than put it on, though, I placed it on the floor. At the corner of my eye, I could see Airglow putting it on her middle head instead, and staring at a mirror. We have no rulers any longer, I said, smiling at the Agrosian. We have no need of them. We are all equal.
What will you do with me?
Calixta asked sadly. I will put that to the IPO for a democratic vote later, but my hope would be that you'll stay here with us on Decreeta, at least for now. We need to learn more about your planet before we decide what to do. You could have the run of our world, such as it is. We'll build you a house, and we'll try our best to program our food replicators with your food if you agree to our terms and conditions, but we'll decide later. You might not be allowed off the planet. You won't exactly be a prisoner either. Just a citizen who's grounded. Nothing more, nothing less.
sounds nice,
she said, clearly using another word she'd never had use for before. It was hard to think that she had been threatening us just moments earlier, for now she looked completely defeated.
Just a bit,
said Horace.
I know your naivety has saved us once, Eleron, but she was about to kill us all quite happily. I wasn't an idle threat either. The Hive did kill Bob on her orders.
What would you have us do then? I asked Horace. Become like her?
She's not worth trusting,
He said.
Do to her what she did to us. Get revenge for our friend Bob,
said Balthazar.
The logical thing to do would be to kill her, so as to be sure we're safe in the future,
said Quincy. Said Jennifer and Jane together.
Go to a homeworld in Falcon,
said Marianne. Overcompensate the parameters of our opponent's former boundaries by restricting access to their autonomous liberty, yelled Cody. Affirmative, indubitably, Cornelius agreed.
Said your friend you were an ice cream,
said JJ.
She looks hot.
No, well, maybe the ice cream bit can be arranged, I said. Would you all have us do to her what she did to us, and risk starting another war in the future? I concluded, turning to everyone, and knowing that I was under pressure as a leader again. What about who comes to power on her planet after her? Are we going to war with them too in another generation? I know my history of all our planets. Attack the losers of a war and make them suffer, and their offspring come after us later. We have to show mercy and forgiveness over and over and over again, demonstrate why being part of our union is better than being one rogue state fighting outside it. Truly the only solution to war is peace, an active peace we deliberately choose rather than fall into, not another war. I looked at Calixta, who had been staring at her feet. One more question, I said. You say there is only one of you that is different to the Hive. But how is that possible? Calixta explained.
There used to be more of us generations ago, but they all died in endless coups. Now there is only me, as there was once only my father and grandmother and great-grandfather. Each generation a ruler chooses a hive to mate with, usually his or her strongest and most noble warriors. Only one child is ever born. I am the only direct descendant of my kind alive. Our sort would die out now. I won't be of any danger to you. My honour is besmirched forever, and to a royal Agrosian pureblood, her honour is everything. I still choose to survive, and will abide by your terms.
I don't see any reason your bloodline should die out, I said. By the sound of it, you are becoming less bloodthirsty with each passing generation. This could be a good thing. Balthazar chose that moment to move from the spot where Bob had died, as shown to him by airglow, and walk up to Calixta. No, I cried, stopping him again. Don't do anything rash we end up regretting.
I'm not that stupid, Eleron,
Balthazar said.
I know you are our leader, even if it is an elected one rather than a dictator. I just wanted to know that Bob was worth a quadrillion of her. I know you didn't see the best of him during his time on the IPO, but you should have seen what it was like years ago. So much chaos and unfairness. Bob took it upon himself to put things right, even if all that power did go to his head so little in the end.
I'll say, I started without really meaning to.
No,
said Balthazar, looking at me.
You don't understand, Eleron. He's the reason you were there at all.
Oh, I know all about that, I sighed. He and Horace admitted they fixed the figures for the election.
That's right,
said Balthazar.
He would have trounced you with more votes than the rest of you put together. There are a lot of Belobrats on Helisphere after all, and they were hardly going to vote for any other species now, were they? But he knew that putting another Belobrat into office after all his centuries of corruption would not have been good for the universe. He just couldn't bring himself to give up full control in the end. It was hard for Belobrats not being in control. You and Horace were so close for the second it was difficult to choose between you, but he thought your idealism and energy were worthier than Horace's more casual approach. Eleron, Bob basically appointed you both.
I looked at Horace. Is this true? My former vice president seemed as unruffled as ever.
Of course.
He nodded.
And to tell the truth, I rather relented at first, Eleron. I worked hard to make a name for myself outside Habitat. Very few Habitats ever do, after all, and I worried that your rushing around everywhere was going to ruin the work I wanted to do. I'm rather glad it was you that became president in the end, and I'd never have thought of bringing people together the way you did. The idea of community is such an alien concept to Habitat. He saved our lives, Eleron,
said Echo.
He risked everything to help my escape plan.
And Bob was as much a hero as any of us, and will be remembered. Always, I said, making the Mrasianart symbol of grief, placing my forehead against my wings and bowing. Whatever we do can be decided later, by committee, though I vote for taking away this Queen's freedom without taking away her life. Her shuttle might be destroyed, but she won't be, and she won't be able to work ours. Oh yes, the shuttles! I better go and tell them all it's safe. I yelled, barking orders to keep an eye on our prisoner and tie her up if need be, as I ran off to my remaining crew, who had been watching from a distance, in shock. We won! I told them all. Please, each of you, tell your planets that we have won, and they are all free to go home, although it would be grateful if one shuttle from each planet could stay for safety reasons so we can guard our prisoner. Thank you to all of you, up in the air and on the ground. We all cheered, and I beamed at Geraldine, who was looking rather nervous, hovering in the background, and waiting to tell Earth what had happened. Thank you, I whispered quietly in her ear. I couldn't have got this far without you. I honestly couldn't. This is your victory, every bit as much as it is mine. I only hope your phone bill isn't too astronomical now. You'll most likely be alive to pay it. You see, she beamed straight back. I told you I had unshakable faith in you. You are the best president we could have asked for. Earth is safe now. I think that's worth signing off a phone bill on my expense account. I'll make it a condition of passing on the news back home. I turned to see Airglow looking at me.
Eleron?
She asked, and just for a moment I saw a last moment of doubt and vulnerability on her face, before she wiped it out with a shake of her 3 Belobrat heads. Oh boy, this was what was really scaring me. Not standing up for the rights of 10 planets, or fighting for my life against the Agrosians, for I knew well that the universe would look after itself, whether I was there or not. My marriage, though, was different. The second most difficult task of the day completed, saving the universe from destruction. I now turned to the first.
Bev,
She said, shaking her phone.
the signal here is terrible. Look at this great photograph I took for my Instapad.
It showed Airglow in front of a tied-up Agrosians, pouting at the camera and waving her 3 arms in the air above a caption that read,
Just save the universe from these bad boys, but who's going to save them from me? The fur is about to fly. Hashtag lol. Hashtag roll on the floor laughing. Hashtag what am I like? So what did you get me from Earth then?
Airglow asked as she finally put her phone away.
I take it you brought me back a present. Nothing much.
I was a bit busy saving the universe, I stammered. We could probably put an order or 2 in now, though. The universe owes me a favour. Ushering my wife to one side, we could talk more privately, I continued. Airglow, I started.
She
held up her hand.
Before you talk my ear off, Eleron, there's someone I want you to meet. My new boyfriend, Gosh.
She pulled the little furry red Agrosian to her side and kissed him.
Blimey.
Said Gosh.
I got bored waiting for you to save me and rather fell for him.
Said Airglow.
Isn't he adorable? All that cute fur. He's my bit of red fluff. I know you're the leader of a free universe and all Eleron, but, well, he's much more photogenic and he's going to be perfect for helping me gain followers on Instapad. So I guess this is it. I really did love you, Eleron, but I'm not built to share my life with one person on one planet. There was so much going on in my head. I'll be sure to give you a good write-up on Twitface Insta Yahoo.
She pulled her face.
I'm sorry. You must have known this was coming. You know I'm not one for emotions, Eleron. I was always your blooming thing, not mine. And oh yes, thank you for saving my life, though.
She added as an afterthought. Once the shock had worn off, I hugged her one last time. Thank you for saving mine. Not just now, but always. You had belief in me when no one else would, when I was a nobody. Just the smallest creature on Mars, and I will never ever forget that, ever. And part of my heart will always belong to you, Airglow. Some people, heck most people, never get to experience finding a person that fits with them as well as I fitted with you. How lucky was I to have had you at all, for any length of time. Even if it wasn't the forever I had planned, to be able to call you mine for the time we had was special enough for one lifetime. I am incredibly grateful for everything you ever gave to me, and ever will be. There was a time when I felt like the most loved Mrasianart, the most loved human being in the universe, and times like those don't come around very often. Even if our time was shorter than I ever wanted it to be, and I really genuinely planned for us to be together for the rest of my life, one thing I learned when facing death was that sometimes it's all right if those times don't last forever. The fact that I got to know what those times were like before I died was enough. I will always be there for you, though. In the future, too. We are still less alone together, even at a distance, though I've learnt now that some borders and boundaries in life are best kept in place.
Same old Eleron.
Grinned Egglo.
Still making speeches and apologies.
Not the same old Eleron at all, I sighed. Not after everything I've seen this week. Instead, I feel like an amalgam. I stand before you, not just as the world's only Humrasianbrat, only Humrasianart, but the world's first everything. I'm part laid-back Habitat, part uptight Mechion, part friendly Clandesprod, part reserved Camelosian, part Mrasianbrat mystic, even part Agrosian aggressor now, but all parts human, more than I've ever been in my life before. I have come to understand my strengths, to accept my weaknesses. I know that I am the first, yet also the last person who should ever have set off on a quest like this one. I am at last, after so many decades of searching for what I was, of trying to live up to my parents' reputation and my legacy, of so many years being what other people wanted me to be. To be me, what people want me to be, me, myself. No more and no less than that. Egglo opened her mouth as if she was about to argue again, and suddenly made her stop as she listened to her inner Mrasianart. Instead of disagreeing, she looked up at me with sad eyes and nuzzled her forehead against mine, a traditional Mrasianart form of greeting. And farewells.
Goodbye, Eleron,
she said.
I'll always remember when you were mine.
As I will always remember when you were mine, I said, with love and gratitude. I walked back slowly to the IPO on my own, thinking things over, and tried to walk through the door that had now closed, finding that it wouldn't open. Knocking on it, I asked, President Horace, would you let me in? I forgot I was just a citizen now and needed permission. Just then a shuttle landed. Hello, said the Earthling, getting out of it. We're the cleaners you requested. Sorry we're a bit late. We went by Earth shuttle. It took us a whole week to get here. Did we miss anything exciting?
Early creation times.
Monday, September the 7th, 2082. Peace in our time. We're back! Wow, what a story we have to tell you, all about how Intergalactic President Eleron and his loyal troops saved us all. However, too many people are celebrating right now, so the only person available to talk is our new cleaner from Earth, Steve Fitzpatrick. Welcome to the Decreeta Daily, Steve, the new newspaper for the International Peace Headquarters. Are you having a peaceful day? Not blooming likely. I've been stuck in that beeping Earth shuttle for a week now and got lost at Alpha Centauri and Beetlejuice. I know I should have followed my son Mike's instructions. He's always right about everything. Suddenly everyone's going around acting mad. What happened? You mean you don't know? About the universe being invaded? About us all being held hostage? The little red furry aliens? Oh, was that an alien? I was only interested in doing the hoovering. I miss everything that goes on around here. Did we win? Yes, we're saved. Oh, that's nice. Do I get a raise? No. Do you have a favourite pet algebra? I like the one that looks like a dog has a cane and sings New Earth, New Earth.
The Belobrat Bugle, where 3 headlines are better than 1.
Peace all over the universe, giving you the best news the universe has to offer. Well, this isn't something I can admit to very often,
said our correspondent Bodis.
But dang me if I was wrong about Intergalactic President Eleron. In him I saw a tiny, ordinary, passive hybrid being, hopelessly naive as most Mrasianarts tend to be, and unsuited to the pressures of such a giant job, as are most humans. But instead Eleron has brought us peace and stability with his careful, thoughtful, uniting leadership. It was through him and his noble band of followers, Team Universal, that for the first time the citizens of 12 planets sat down to enjoy a virtual supper on the universe's first ever peace day, organised by Tsar JJJJ Enthusiast. There were speeches, songs, jokes, riddles, anecdotes throughout the night, and more laughter and merriment and my own autobiography, as 11 species enjoyed each other's company. It really did seem as if the universe suddenly grew smaller overnight, and the boundaries between our provinces were disabled in the name of peace and love. As I sat there enjoying the festivities and the multi-species banquet prepared by our hosts, and delivered around the world by the foosball team shuttle, my three heads were suddenly in unison. For years I had been telling you not to vote for Eleron, as he seemed to be an idealist and was running for an organisation that had no ultimate power. I thought I knew everything. I was wrong. No one could be more shocked about that than me. So here is an apology. Continues, page 14, to Apple.